Back then, you could escape to a magical island where your biggest dreams came true, led by a mysterious man in a white suit and his helper shouting, "Deplane! Deplane!" Fantasy Island ran for 7 seasons from 1977 to 1984, with Ricardo Montalbán as the mysterious Mr. Roarke and Hervé Villechaize as Tattoo. Every Saturday night, guests arrived by seaplane to live out their deepest wishes, and we couldn't look away. But behind the sunny paradise, Fantasy Island had secrets of its own. An idea that began as a sarcastic joke, a casting fight over Orson Welles, and Ricardo Montalbán's private belief about who Mr. Roarke really was. Today, we're counting down 15 strange and wonderful facts about this show. Stick around for number 15. Montalbán's reveal about Roarke's true identity might just change how you see the entire series. Now, before we jump in, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who still gets excited every time they hear a plane overhead.
Now let's get into it with number 1. ABC wanted Orson Welles, not Ricardo Montalban. When it was time to cast Mr. Roarke, ABC aimed high. They wanted Orson Welles or John Huston. Both were completely wrong for the role. Aaron Spelling knew it right away. Welles was famous for being very hard to work with on set, and Huston had serious emphysema. Fantasy Island was not a high-class movie project. It was a weekly TV show, 24 episodes each season, and neither of these men could handle that fast and demanding schedule.
Yes, Mr. Udall is very successful, and at a very dangerous profession. Some say he's the most daring and spectacular escape artist the world has seen since his late father, who was the original great Dante.
Spelling already had someone else in mind, Ricardo Montalban. He had worked steadily since the 1940s and was making a comeback thanks to those Chrysler Cordoba commercials. And as Spelling put it, he fit perfectly into Roarke's perfectly tailored white suit. In simple terms, he looked right for the role and would not create problems during production. Spelling fought for Montalban and won. Can you imagine Orson Welles in that white suit every week saying,
Smiles, everyone, smiles.
ABC wanted a big, famous name. Spelling wanted someone who would actually show up on time and do the job properly.
Number 2. The whole show started as a sarcastic joke. Aaron Spelling and Leonard Goldberg walked into ABC with 6 strong show ideas. The network rejected every single one. By the 6th rejection, Spelling had enough, so he threw out the most ridiculous idea he could think of. What do you want? An island where people can go and all their wildest dreams come true? He was clearly being sarcastic, but ABC executive Brandon Stoddard replied, "Yeah, I love that." And just like that, Spelling accidentally sold a show he never meant to pitch. The sexual fantasy idea was toned down for network primetime, but the wish fulfillment concept stayed. Here's the twist. Leonard Goldberg told a very different story. He said he was looking out a window and joked about being on a desert island with the Charlie's Angels cast, and that sparked the idea. So either Spelling was letting out frustration or Goldberg was daydreaming about swimsuits. Either way, one casual joke turned into one of ABC's biggest hits, bringing in over 20 million viewers at its peak. Sometimes networks approve exactly the wrong idea for all the right reasons.
Number 3. Hervé Villechaize was the youngest artist ever to have his work shown at the Museum of Paris. Before tattoo, before acting, and before Hollywood, he was already being recognized for his artistic talent at a very young age. Hervé Villechaize was born in Paris in 1943 with pituitary dwarfism. Long before Hollywood ever called, he found his voice through painting. He studied at the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, one of France's most respected art institutions, where generations of influential artists trained. By his late teens, Villechaize was already exhibiting his work and gaining recognition in Parisian art circles. His paintings were bold, expressive, and full of color, a reflection of his larger-than-life personality. One story often told is that he gave a painting to the famously private Greta Garbo, not someone known for accepting gifts easily. That detail alone speaks to the confidence he carried as a young artist. So when you watched Tattoo running toward the bell tower shouting, "Deplane, deplane," you weren't just watching a television sidekick, you were watching a classically trained artist who had already built a creative identity long before stepping onto a Hollywood soundstage. Not bad for a man most people only remember for a catchphrase. Number 4. Hervé also played Oscar the Grouch's legs on Sesame Street. While building his Hollywood career in the early 70s, Hervé took some unusual side jobs, including this one. Yes, really. Carol Spinney gave Oscar his voice and controlled the puppet from above. But whenever the grumpy trash can character needed to walk, they needed someone small enough to move the legs from inside the costume.
Shuffle on the buffalo. I'm gonna take a sentimental journey.
Carol Spinney, who voiced and operated Oscar the Grouch, later recalled how the character evolved. At one point, the production team experimented with cutting the bottom out of Oscar's trash can and adding legs so the character could walk around. To make that work, they needed a performer small enough to fit inside the costume. Hervé Villechaize was one of the actors who filled that role during the early 1970s. Spinney also remembered first seeing Hervé perform in an experimental play at Manhattan's La Mama Experimental Theater Club, long before either man became widely known on television. This was years before Fantasy Island, and just a short time later, in 1974, Villechaize would appear as Knick-Knack, the sharp-tongued henchman in the James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun. So within a few short years, Hervé had been a classically trained French artist, a performer in New York experimental theater, part of Sesame Street history, and a Bond villain's sidekick. That's range. And yes, the same man who would later shout, "De plane! De plane!" once helped Oscar the Grouch stomp around Sesame Street.
Number 5. The plane was owned by the author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That seaplane arriving every week wasn't just some random rental prop. It had a literary background and an interesting history. The plane shown in the opening credits was a Scan 30, a French-built version of the Grumman G-44 Widgeon plane.
It was made in La Rochelle, France, back in 1951. But here's where it gets strange. The plane sat without an engine and in pieces in storage for 16 years because the French couldn't get the engines to work right. In 1967, it was finally sent to the US, put back together, and fitted with Lycoming radial engines, making it the last Widgeon ever completed before Aaron Spelling's production company leased it for Fantasy Island in 1976. The plane belonged to Richard Bach, the author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, that 1970 novella about a philosophical seagull that became a huge bestseller and a cultural phenomenon. Bach was a serious pilot, and he even mentions the plane's role in an unnamed popular TV show in his book The Bridge Across Forever, a fun little Easter egg if you know where to look. So the plane went from carrying a writer exploring flight and freedom to delivering dreamers to Fantasy Island for their own life lessons. Poetic symmetry the producers probably never even noticed. But here's where it gets a little darker. After the show ended, the plane changed owners a few times, and by the mid-1980s, it was seized by the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics for drug smuggling. It eventually went to auction, got restored, and reportedly ended up with an antique dealer in Missouri. From literary flights of fancy to network TV to federal crime, that plane had quite the journey.
Number 6. Ricardo Montalban's Corinthian leather was completely made up. Now, if you grew up in the 1970s, you remember Ricardo Montalban in those Chrysler Cordoba commercials, talking about the soft Corinthian leather like it was made by ancient Greek gods.
Pride, very cornerstone of a new automobile. Cordoba, the new small Chrysler. Here is the warmth of thickly cushioned contour seats, available even in fine Corinthian leather.
His delivery made it sound exotic, luxurious, and rare, and it worked. Corinthian leather became a way to say premium quality. But here's the truth. It was complete nonsense. The term was made up by an ad agency for Chrysler's 1975 Cordoba. The leather wasn't from Corinth, Greece. It came from Newark, New Jersey, the same mid-grade domestic leather that Ford and Chevy used. Montalban later admitted this on Late Night with David Letterman, calling it just a very good piece of writing that meant absolutely nothing. So when he said Corinthian leather in that rich, confident voice, people believed they were sitting in something special. They weren't, but the fantasy worked perfectly. It turns out Mr. Roarke was already selling dreams during every commercial break. The man had a gift, whether it involved magical islands or completely fictional leather from Jersey. Number 7. Michelle Pfeiffer got her SAG card from Fantasy Island. Before Scarface, before Catwoman, and before the Oscar nominations, Michelle Pfeiffer was a 22-year-old model struggling at auditions. Fantasy Island was where she finally got a break.
On January 17, 1981, she appeared in the episode The Artist and the Lady.
Who is he, Naomi?
That role earned her a Screen Actors Guild card, the golden ticket that opened the door to union auditions and everything that came after. She has confirmed this was her first acting job. Just 3 years earlier, she was scanning groceries at a Vaughn's supermarket and entering beauty pageants, not for the crown, but because she had heard talent scouts sometimes sat on the judging panels. She won Miss Orange County in 1978, placed 6th in Miss California, and gained something better than a tiara, an agent. Her character's name was Deborah Dare, and the episode was full of future TV stars. Donnie Most from Happy Days, Eve Plum from the Brady Bunch, and even a young Heather O'Rourke all appeared.
They're here.
Pfeiffer played opposite Most's character Kermit and left the island with him by the end of the episode. From a guest role to 3 Oscar nominations, Mr. Roarke would definitely approve. We're halfway through these Fantasy Island facts, and it only gets weirder from here. Which guest star do you remember the most? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still yells "Deplane" at completely random moments.
Now, let's get back into it with number 8. ABC wanted to fire Hervé and replace him with a pretty woman. After the first Fantasy Island TV movie got good ratings, ABC had notes. They liked the idea, they liked Montalban, but they wanted Hervé gone. Their brilliant solution was to replace Tattoo with an attractive young woman who could stand next to Montalban, looking glamorous and serving drinks. Aaron Spelling and Leonard Goldberg said no. Spelling loved the dynamic between the tall, elegant Montalban and the short, energetic Villechaize. When the network kept pushing, Spelling told them flat out, "If you fire Hervé, you'll have to replace me and Goldberg too." ABC blinked first. Hervé stayed. Deplane, Deplane became a cultural phenomenon, and the network nearly threw it all away because they thought audiences wanted generic glamour instead of real character chemistry.
Number 9. The show only lasted 1 season after Hervé left. By 1983, things on the Fantasy Island set had become messy. Hervé's behavior was causing problems, clashing with producers and making unwanted advances toward female guest stars and crew.
Tattoo,
Yes, boss.
precisely what is going on here?
I'm just trying to light your pipe, boss.
I haven't smoked a pipe in years.
But the real drama started earlier than most people realize. Back in seasons 5 and 6, producers brought in Wendy Shaw to play Julie, Mr. Rourke's goddaughter, as a new recurring assistant. Hervé wasn't happy. He felt the character was taking his spotlight. Later, he told a reporter, "Suddenly, I find myself doing a boss's fantasy and goodbye, and that's it. I used to refuse jobs like this." He even resisted doing publicity photos with Shaw and Montalban, telling a publicist, "I'm doing this because you were twisting my arm." When ratings began to drop, Hervé made a risky move. He demanded equal pay with Ricardo Montalban. The producers fired him before season 7 even started. His replacement was Christopher Hewitt, best known for playing the stuffy butler in Mr. Belvedere. He stepped in as Lawrence, a refined British assistant who stood 6 feet 2 inches tall. Instead of running up the bell tower and shouting, "Deplane, Deplane," Lawrence calmly pressed an electronic button to ring the bell. It was efficient, dignified, and had all the charm of a hotel concierge filling in for a rock star. The show struggled through one final season and was canceled in 1984. Was it Hervé's departure that ended it? Hard to say for sure. The show was already 7 years old. The anthology format was getting tired, and ABC was busy changing its whole lineup. But there's no doubt the magic left when Tattoo did. His firing marked a turning point in Hervé's life. In the years that followed, he struggled a lot with his career and mental health. He died in 1993. It turns out, chemistry isn't just good for TV, it's everything, and you can't replace it with a button.
Number 10. Hervé had a custom golf cart that became part of his character. One of the most memorable images of Fantasy Island was Tattoo zooming around in that small vehicle, speeding through scenes and creating fun chaos.
Boss! beautiful.
Here's the thing. That wasn't a prop. That was Hervé's actual personal ride. A custom-built miniature cart with a fiberglass body, red striped awning, and a lawnmower engine. He'd race it between takes to get to his marks, often recklessly, and the production team saw it and thought, yeah, that works. Let's just ride it into the show. After his firing, Hervé took the cart with him. Since then, it has appeared in auctions as TV memorabilia.
Number 11. Peter Dinklage finally gave Hervé's story the respect it deserved. For years after Hervé's death in 1993, his story was mostly remembered through tabloid headlines and a catchphrase. Then, in 2018, HBO released My Dinner with Hervé, and everything changed.
Smoking isn't a risk.
A life without risks is not worth discussing.
The film was based on a real meeting between British journalist Sacha Gervasi and Hervé during the final week of Hervé's life. Gervasi was 26, assigned to write a short, jokey piece about the man who used to shout, "De plane, de plane!" No one had interviewed him in nearly 10 years. Instead, Gervasi spent 3 wild nights riding Sunset Boulevard in a white stretch limo with a man who was brilliant, brutally honest, and deeply unpredictable. Hervé opened up about his childhood in Nazi-occupied Paris, his artistic career, his Hollywood struggles, and the chronic pain he lived with every day. At the end of their time together, Hervé told Gervasi, "Tell them I regret nothing." 1 week later, Hervé was gone. Gervasi tried to tell the real story, but his editors buried it as 4 pages of fluff next to the recipe section. So he turned it into a screenplay, his first, which got him into UCLA Film School and eventually led to him writing The Terminal for Spielberg. But he never stopped trying to make My Dinner with Hervé happen. Dinklage signed on 15 years before the film was finally made. Studios kept saying it couldn't be done. Then Game of Thrones made Dinklage a global star, and suddenly HBO wanted a story about the most famous little person from the biggest TV show of the 1970s, being played by the most famous little person from the biggest TV show of the 2010s. The film earned Dinklage a Golden Globe nomination. His performance showed Hervé as a complete person, talented, complex, and struggling, never reduced to just a catchphrase. It was the tribute Hervé deserved all along. Not a tragedy, not a joke, just an honest look at a complicated man and a promise kept 25 years late.
Number 12. Ricardo Montalbán suffered in that perfect white suit for 7 seasons. Every week he looked completely flawless in that crisp white suit. Perfect lines, no wrinkles, total elegance. But here's the cost of that perfection. He was quietly miserable the whole time.
I know everything that'll happen. I know everything that can go wrong. And I'm telling you, he can't do it, Mr. Roarke. He'll get killed.
Well, why are you telling me? Why don't you tell your father?
Are you kidding? He wouldn't listen to me.
The suit had a heavy nylon lining to keep it wrinkle-free. It worked beautifully, but it also acted like a portable sauna under the tropical Hawaii sun, stage lights, and 12-hour workdays. Montalban was basically wrapped in a blanket under heat lamps. He rarely complained, but years later admitted it was brutally uncomfortable. Some days he was drenched in sweat, but the cameras never caught it. Most actors would have demanded a different solution, but Montalban just endured 7 seasons and never let it show. Next time you see him looking cool and composed, remember, he was absolutely roasting like a Thanksgiving turkey inside that suit.
Number 13. Fantasy Island was actually filmed all over Southern California, plus Hawaii. The show never said exactly where Fantasy Island was located. They kept it vague and mysterious, but the real filming locations tell a different story. That main building with the bell tower, that's the Queen Anne Cottage at the Los Angeles County Arboretum in Arcadia, California. The plane landing scenes were filmed in the nearby lagoon. A fun detail? They often had to crane the plane into the water because it couldn't safely land there. Most tropical jungle scenes were shot at that same arboretum, and interiors were filmed on sound stages at Warner Brothers in Burbank. But here's the kicker. Those beautiful aerial shots of coastlines and waterfalls in the opening credits? That's not California at all. That was Kauai, Hawaii, the Na Pali coast and Wailua Falls. So every week you'd see real Hawaii, then immediately cut to Southern California pretending to be a magical island. And it worked. Most viewers never really noticed. Fantasy Island wasn't one island. It was Arcadia, Burbank, and the Hawaiian coastline stitched together. Mr. Roarke's paradise existed everywhere and nowhere at the same time, which somehow makes the whole thing even more fitting.
Number 14. Ricardo Montalbán secretly believed Mr. Roarke was a fallen angel. For 7 seasons, fans wondered about Mr. Rourke's true nature. He would casually say he knew Helen of Troy, he'd mention events from centuries ago like he had been there, and it was clear he had supernatural powers. The show kept hinting that he was more than human, but never explained exactly what.
You are finally beaten.
We both know the rules. You must take exactly what you are entitled to exactly, not one soul more nor less.
Ricardo Montalban knew the answer the whole time. In a detailed interview for the Television Academy Foundation, Montalban finally explained how he understood Rourke's near-omnipotent powers, the time travel, the impossible wishes, the quiet control over everything and everyone. He decided for himself that Mr. Roarke was an angel, but not a perfect one. This angel had one fatal flaw, the capital sin of pride. That's why Montalban played certain scenes with just a hint of ego, dismissing Tattoo's doubts with a hearty, "Of course we can do that, Tattoo." It wasn't arrogance for the sake of arrogance, it was a deliberate choice based on a celestial backstory. And the island itself? Montalban saw it as Rourke's purgatory. By helping guests find purification through their fantasies, sometimes learning hard lessons and sometimes failing spectacularly, Rourke was also working toward his own redemption. Suddenly, everything makes sense. That's why the fantasies always had moral complications. That's why he showed endless patience with flawed humans making terrible decisions. And that's why he battled the literal devil, played by Roddy McDowall in several episodes, fighting over the souls of guests.
You hurt my feelings, my dear Rourke. I know the rules. Even my worst detractors must admit that the devil is a damn good sport.
Montalban even believed Rourke was his only name, like Michael for the Archangel, or Garbo, or Madonna. No first name was needed when you were that powerful. None of this was official canon. The writers never confirmed it. It was just Montalban's private motivation for a role that otherwise didn't have traditional emotional scenes or a clearly defined history. But knowing that's how he approached every scene completely changes the way you see the entire series.
Number 15. Hollywood keeps trying to revive Fantasy Island, and it never works. Here's the harsh truth. Fantasy Island worked once perfectly because of a specific moment, specific chemistry, and a tone that can't be copied. Hollywood refuses to accept this. In 1998, ABC tried a revival with Malcolm McDowell as a darker Mr. Rourke. It lasted 13 episodes. In 2020, Blumhouse turned it into a horror movie with Michael Pena. Critics destroyed it, 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. It made money, but creatively it was brutal. In 2021, Fox launched a sequel series with Rosalind Sanchez as Elena Rourke, the original's grandniece.
That was incredible! Miss Madam, Mr. Randall, I'm Elena Rourke, your host. Welcome to Fantasy Island.
2 seasons and then it was canceled for low ratings. Every attempt has failed to capture what made the original special. And it's not because these versions were necessarily bad. They just couldn't recreate the magic. Fantasy Island worked because of Montalban's elegance and Villechaize's energy playing off each other. It worked because it aired Saturday nights after The Love Boat when families wanted pure, escapist entertainment. It worked because audiences wanted optimism and gentle moral lessons wrapped in tropical wish fulfillment. You can't remake that cultural moment. You can't bottle that chemistry. Sometimes the smartest thing Hollywood can do is recognize when something was lightning in a bottle and just let it stay a beautiful memory. Fantasy Island doesn't need another reboot. It was perfect exactly once. That's enough. And there you have it, 15 wild facts about Fantasy Island. From a sarcastic pitch that accidentally became a hit to a fallen angel working his way through purgatory, this show was so much more than just a catchphrase. It was lightning in a bottle, magic that happened once and couldn't be recreated no matter how many times Hollywood tried. If you enjoyed this trip back to the island, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the shows that shaped our Saturday nights. Drop a comment with your favorite Fantasy Island guest star or which fact surprised you the most. And remember, smiles everyone, smiles.